So today we have a great opportunity to talk to, one of my longtime friends who I met going back probably 10, maybe 11 years ago, David Craib, who's out of Indiana. And David, I remember, I think, meeting you for the first time when you came over with a big contingency of managers back in the day at our former captive shop. And, first off, welcome. I'm excited to have you with Four. I know we connected, maybe 6 or 8 months ago and just really started talking a little bit about, what you were looking to do in the future and how you wanted to kind of scale and build. And, first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? So the folks can kind of find out a little bit about David Craib.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me too. I'm real excited to be here. But for me, I'm over here in Indiana. I've never lived more than 30 minutes from where I grew up. I got a wife that was my high school sweetheart that I'm married to, and we've got 5 kids, which is more than enough. They keep us busy, keep us running. So yeah, just living out here in the country, trying to build a business and let her build her dream of having a little mini farm out here. So it's good.
Yeah, and every time I've talked to you, I think it's great to kind of see that because I'm so concentrated over here where I am in Connecticut, where there's definitely farms here in Connecticut, but not where I am. So to be able to have that open space has got to be a lot of fun and great. I would imagine great for the kids, which is awesome.
Yeah, they love it. They get out there and play.
What got you into the business, David?
So originally, I used to do construction for a living. I made pretty good money, but I worked for an older gentleman and he didn't work me very often. So I wasn't getting a whole lot of hours. I put my resume online. A company had reached out to me and I booked an interview with them, going into it with the idea of, this probably isn't going to be for me, but at least it could be a good practice interview. So I go in and I get there and they sit me in a room full of people. I have no idea what's going on, but I had a whole list of questions to ask whoever I sat down with. And by the time they got through everything, my questions had been answered. And part of me thought this is a whole load of bull. And the other part of me thought, maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe I need to come back and, revisit this for a second time, So I ended up coming into the business and it felt good to be able to go out and help people. It was a lot different. I didn't have to get to the crawl space every day and get into people's houses and work on their electrical systems or anything like that. Instead, I was going out and sitting down in front of people and taking a look at their situation to find the best way to help them out and put them in a better spot. So,
yeah, I think my story is similar to that in the sense that, where I came from to going through the same exact process you went through going back 20 plus years ago was the fact of feeling like what I was doing was financially rewarding before I came into the industry, but it was a little bare in terms of feeling like I was actually making a difference. I was working in the marketing area and it was lucrative, but it really wasn't impacting people at the end of the day. It was just helping businesses make more money. And that feeling, I think, like you just mentioned, of being able to help people and feel like you've made a positive impact in someone's lives, and more importantly, sometimes their kids' lives, is really something that you can kind of put your hand on your heart and say, hey, you know what? Regardless of what I make, I'm doing meaningful work. And I think that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
So
as long as you put the clients, as long as you put the client's needs first and really just put in the work, everything else is going to fall into place.
you know what, you're right. It's not a me first mentality. And I think, moving through the process of talking to someone, getting to know them, and then trying to provide strategies, you're building relationships and you're making a commitment to the person that you're gonna end up helping them. So tell me a little bit about your captive agent experience.
Absolutely. So, I got some good training and I got off to a good start. Within a few months of starting, I was out training new agents. But, they had some pretty good systems in place. And, 12 years ago when I started, everything was different than it is today, if that makes any sense. Like it's not the same business. Technology has made a big difference in the way that we do things now. But then everything that they had in place was good, and it got me off to a good start and put me in a spot where I was able to grow into a leadership role, take some leadership classes, and start growing a team and start growing other leaders. When I left that captive agency, there were other agents that had come in that I had trained that were in the same position I was in different offices across Indiana. So it felt good to know that I helped impact that and I helped build that for them. But yeah, like I said, as times change though, we've got to be able to keep up with those times.
Yeah, and it's funny. You were laughing. We were talking, multiple times on the phone, and before you reached out to me after you had left the captive space, it's I go back over 20 years, and you laugh, but when I started, we actually had a rate book that was this thick, and a laptop was, I think, $4,000, and it was like a DOS program basically that you had on the laptop that did like nothing. Now literally, and you and I have talked about this, and we don't have time on the call to talk about it, but you have AI that, 12 years ago and 24 years ago, we didn't even envision that, as something that was going to be, impactful in this business. And it's just amazing how, like you said, you can be state of the art, or you can kind of be in the Stone Ages in terms of technology. And there still are some brick and mortar, large scale captive companies that are just light years behind the cutting edge technology. So I know, maybe share some thoughts on that, and for what you've seen as the biggest differences in becoming independent that's really benefited you.
Yeah, I think it's all right. I'd like to kind of share why I ended up wanting to become independent, and we can go into that and what the benefits have been. Because everything that I was looking for, you guys kind of already had a lot of that stuff in place. So where I thought I was going to be leaving to try to build something brand new, you guys had a lot of systems in place already that I could just plug into.
Mhm.
So for me, it was rough to know that there were a lot of things that I had to do like on a daily basis in that career that weren't impactful. It was me doing something that had to be done because home office wanted it done or my manager wanted it done. They wanted the box checked, but it wasn't something that was impactful. And you end up spending a lot of time spinning your wheels doing stuff that may have worked a decade ago, but doesn't work today, and the idea of being in charge of growing an office and being in charge of recruiting people in to kind of sell them the dream of what you can do as an insurance agent or in the financial services industry. It's a huge opportunity, but it's a huge opportunity when you have the right tools, resources, and more importantly, the right support. And to be in a position where you've got to bring in these people, knowing that you don't have enough of the resources they need to find the same success that I found 12 years ago. It was rough. It went from, I used to get 20 to maybe 20 leads a week that was given to me in the captive space, to where I had a team in an office of 10 to 12 agents, depending on what we're talking about. And I might get 10 to 20 leads for the entire week to split between all of them. And that makes it tough to find success. And when you're not the one in charge of lead orders, but you're the one in charge of distributing the leads and making sure they have those resources, they're looking to you when you don't have the stuff, or they're not looking up the chain to the people that can actually make the difference. So trying to do different things, like trying to be able to order my own leads or to try to be able to do my own marketing. I reached out to home office. It would take weeks or months to get responses on this stuff, or I'd have to get other people involved to get
Hey, David, I'm just going
responses.
to cut you off here because your signal must be bad, because you're no longer, your video is not moving any longer.
Yeah, yours isn't either.
It's just a still frame.
Yeah, hold on a second. All right.
So
Hopefully she can get them off there
everything
real
you
quick.
said, I think,
We
was
won't have that.
fantastic. So I'm just going to start with, what do you think the biggest differences are on the independent side? I'll ask the question again, but everything you said I thought was fantastic. So I don't know. I know you probably can't remember verbatim, but that was really good content. So David, tell me,
Okay.
what do you think the biggest differences are on the independent side?
Sorry, did you want me to go back to just redo that part?
Yeah, so we'll just re-ask the
Perfect.
question, all right?
Okay.
So David, what do you think the biggest differences are on the independent side?
There's quite a few of them, and I think starting with why I left the captive space, I think will answer that and a lot of other questions as well. There were a lot of systems in place when I was brand new to the captive space that allowed me to find success, but as times change, we need to be able to change the systems to meet with the different technologies and things that we can do now. And to be honest, and being in a leadership role that was in charge of running an office and growing an office with recruiting, it was tough to know that my job was to sell somebody a dream, to bring them into the financial services industry, to find success, but not have the tools and resources they need to find the same level of success I found when I was brand new. So since the times have changed, we need to be in a position where we can keep up with that, and they have what they need to find the success they're looking for. Because of success quite a few times there, huh?
Mhm.
So,
That's important.
um,
Hey, and
uh,
technology wise for you, I know was really huge, right?
yeah, the technology and the idea that we weren't even allowed to send a text message to a prospect, that you could get in trouble for that, or that if you wanted to post something on your Facebook page, it had to go through home office, and it might take 3 to 5 days before they approve it, and you're allowed to post it. So if I did something on a Friday or a Saturday that was team building, it might not be posted till Wednesday or Thursday of the following week, which is just insane to have to jump through those kinds of hoops. Um, it makes it difficult. But I think more than that, the idea of bringing people in and knowing that they need leads and they need to be able to go out and meet people to find success, and being in a position where when I was brand new, I might get 20 leads a week. But by the time I left, the agents that I had in my office, there were 10 to 12 of them, and I might have 20 leads dispersed to all of them combined. It's not enough to find success. So when you get in that spot, you think, well, this is a problem. Let's find a solution. So you start looking into, well, can I order my own leads for the team? Like, I'll pay out of pocket if it means they're going to be able to find success. And you get told, no, you can't do that. You can only buy it through their lead vendors. Well, in the position I was in, I wasn't even allowed to order more leads from their lead vendors. That wasn't my job or my pay grade, if that makes any sense. So just kind of stuck. So I thought, well, what if I can just do marketing and generate my own leads? So I started working on building funnels and landing pages, and I have to send them to home office to get approval. One of the projects I worked on, it was 6 months between when I started and when I finally got a no from them. And I put in a lot of time, energy, and effort to try to figure out a way to make this work. They have some good tools, but their technology isn't where ours is at Four because all their stuff doesn't really work together. It's all a bunch of individual pieces instead of everything being located in one spot. And a lot of the stuff that I was looking for, I knew I needed to leave. I needed to be able to be in a spot where I had all this um, leg up with the technology and being able to build my own websites and being able to do my own marketing. I thought I was going to have to build that from the ground up, but coming to Four, you guys had a lot of that stuff already in place with a lot of templates that were kind of plug and play, and the systems put in place where I could just plug in and come out and find success right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on like every pain point. I think every captive agent coming from the former company we were with, and other agencies have the same thing. I think, and talking about my transition into this industry, I was the director of marketing for a company, and this is going back to 1999. Um, you know, there's marketing and there's branding, and those are two different concepts. And unfortunately, the multi-billion-dollar company that we worked for was run by the legal department and the compliance department and the sales
Absolutely.
department. Was a big indicator for me wanting to leave because I couldn't market the way I wanted to market. We do everything compliantly. We do everything, from a standpoint of making sure we're checking the boxes before we're
Mhm.
sending out stuff and doing stuff. And there still are things you need to get to approve through CMS and things like that nature. But now working with major carriers like Humana and United Healthcare and Aetna, you can send things through them and they get back to you relatively quickly, in terms of being able to do that. But I think that the parts that you kind of hit on, I was embarrassed, literally, and I didn't even want to post stuff because I was on LinkedIn yesterday and I actually responded to some post. I had 117 of my contacts send out the same static post. You're not branding yourself, you're not differentiating yourself, you're not drawing customers to you with that type of online presence. You're just not doing that. And the secondary part that you're saying is, we're generating, grassroots leads that you're building directly for you. I had the hardest time being that guy. And again, a catalyst for leaving was you and I were the guys that interviewed that person in that briefing. We were the ones that sat down in a second or third interview and promised to provide leads and support and training. And I think the training's top notch. I'll never knock the training. I'm not going to knock the leadership. There's extreme talent in the captive space. There's people that I've learned
Absolutely.
so much from in the captive space, but it doesn't matter what level they're at, their hands are tied. And just the pain point that you mentioned before is, these offices don't have the bandwidth to support the number of people they have coming in. That's why it's an unsustainable work environment. That's why they're constantly recruiting, which wastes the majority of your time and my time. That 80-20 rule is inverted, right?
Yeah.
How much time
Yes,
were you
unfortunately.
spending on non-money making tasks for you and your agents versus being
That's
able to generate leads and support and sales?
that was a big part of it for me. There were a lot of things that I was expected to do that to me felt like it was a waste of time. And it was because they were systems that were put into place 10, 20 years ago. And every time you try to make a change or you try to do something different, you're told, well, this is the way that we do it. We need to go back to this. We just need to do more of it. It's like, well, if it's not working now, doing more of it's not going to, give you better results. So there was a lot of time spent on things that I felt like I could have been working on other things that were more useful, uh, where it was a waste of time. And it was just so I could check a box and say to my manager or to, home office, hey, this is done. So can we get back to the stuff where we're making money?
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, for you, what do you think some of the what do you think are three game changers, I guess, that you didn't find in the captive space that you're experiencing in the independent channel?
Number one is being in charge of my own leads. I get to pick where I order them from. You're running your business, and in the captive space, you're sold on the idea that you're running your own business, but it's like business ownership light, right? It's the free version.
Yeah.
But
I would
with
say
this, you may
it's
have
the
to
quote
invest.
unquote entrepreneurial opportunity, but you're not an opportunity entrepreneurial. You're more like a W-2 that's actually getting a 1099.
That's right. Yeah, or a blend if you're in leadership too. So. But being in charge of my own leads, I think, has made a huge difference. You can pick which lead vendors you buy from. You can pick what kind of leads you purchase. You can pick the number of leads instead of having somebody who's not in the field be in charge of giving you what they feel like you need. You can just take care of it for yourself and make sure you have enough to find success. So the leads is huge. Like the idea of being able to buy a lead where the person's already seen my face, knows who I am, expects a call from me, and has filled out in-depth information so you know that they're interested. It's awesome compared to someone who just calls an 800 number and now we're calling because they didn't buy, you know.
Mhm.
Um, I think the second one would be the automation. There's a statistic somewhere, and you probably know it better than I do, but it is like the average lead you can book an appointment with on the sixth or seventh attempt at contact. Is that about right?
Yep.
So, setting up the automation, and I don't set it up with the expectation that I'm not going to have to prospect or I'm not going to have to make phone calls. But the idea that I can have a text message, an email, and a voicemail dropped to a prospect before I ever pick up the phone and dial, half the work is done already because that's 2, 3, 4 attempts before I ever even pick up the phone and dial, and it's in real time. So the lead comes in, and within 10 minutes, I've tried to contact them without, even if I'm busy and I'm in an appointment. So. Um, and I would say the last one is the freedom, um, being able to, I for the most part, I was in charge of my own hours before because of the position I was in, but I was still tied to the office 2 days a week, and I was there, till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, depending on the night or what we had going on. But the idea that I can start and stop as I need to, and I'm working right here out of my home, it's just there's a lot of freedom to it, and with the technology and everything, being able to run phone appointments and not have to send DocuSigns to follow up and get something signed is fantastic because of all
That's
the different
huge.
carriers and the fact that you can just do it right over the phone. Um, there's a fourth one, I guess I have to bring up too. Like you don't meet somebody that you can't help. because of all the different options and all the different companies and all the different differences in underwriting and plans available. Instead of being stuck with 13 different types of life insurance, you're stuck with multiple companies with multiple types of life insurance with all kinds of different underwriting criteria. It puts you in a spot where, regardless of what they've got going on, you're going to be able to find a solution. If you don't get the sale done, it's because you weren't able to get them to commit. So it's never a lack of solution.
Yeah, yeah, and I again, I think what's exciting about this opportunity, and you hit on it several things, is that you know when I left and joined the insurance industry, conceptually, it was about being able to build an agency and run a business and lead from the front in a lot of ways. And I think the pandemic was a drastic thing for me to see how much my agents struggled during that timeline. Um, but it also opened up a window, and that window was really the third kind of point you made on there, was that um, I didn't own my business. I was captive not only to my end game, but I was captive to not a rigid, because I control my schedule to a large degree too. But, you know, I really felt immediately when I saw some of this stuff happening. And obviously, there was other things that occurred for me within my
Yeah.
structure that really just made it, unattainable to stay. The reality of it was I started talking to other people because of the DocuSign that you said. I started trying to figure out,
Hmm.
because we were not prepared for this. And I started going
Hmm.
on message boards and Facebook groups, and I'm talking to people on there, you know, and I'm finding out people on there are selling their agencies for millions of dollars. And I'm looking at it, and my team is doing way more than their agency. And,
Hmm.
you know, I'm gonna get a handshake and maybe a watch at the end of the deal, or I have to work, which many people that we see in that captive space do. They don't stop working. They keep
Yeah.
working because they don't have any value in their business model. And
Yeah.
that freedom is not only awesome, but you want to work as hard as you want to work. At the end of the day, you're going to be able to do that. And, before we jumped on this call, we were talking about the excitement of, the annual election period. And when you can talk about an agency getting, 5, 6 figures from carriers or, organizations to help you market, you know, that's a lot different than, like you said before. We have agents that were in our downline. We're on a bad week. You get 20 leads. That takes 7 contacts to maybe get in touch with someone. And each agent's
Hmm.
getting 1.5 leads to work
Yeah.
during that timeline. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big, big thing. So what would you say to a captive agent right now if they sat down in front of you? What kind of conversation would you have with them on the differences, or why they should look at joining an independent agent role?
So I think captive agencies do a really good job of kind of keeping up a veil. You're kind of closed off from the rest of the insurance world. You don't realize how much opportunity is out there. And I know the idea of leaving your renewals behind because you don't own your book, you have to leave all that behind. Um, it's scary. And if you're in management, the idea of walking away from a team that's generating income for you is scary, but you don't realize how fast you can replace that income. And the opportunity is so much bigger than you realize when you are captive. And it's, some of it almost sounds too good to be true. Like it was, I want to say 4 years ago, I interviewed with another company, and I actually packed up my stuff and almost left the captive agent space. But they ended up giving me an office, and I decided I was going to stay. But when they were talking about the percentages that you could earn, it's like it's double what I'm getting now. Like, how can you afford to do that? It didn't make any sense to me, but you don't realize the business is much bigger on the outside, and there's so much more opportunity for you, and you're going to be able to replace whatever you're leaving extremely quickly, and you're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think for anyone looking to make a change, just take your commissions and double them.
Yeah.
safe to say, and in some areas, I want to say triple, but 2.5 times on certain products, and
Yeah.
comfortably can say that without even flinching. And the same thing that you said is what I experienced. And when you say 12 years ago, the industry was different, it was. Today, and if you're talking to upper leadership in these captive organizations, remember, they've been with that captive agency for 20 plus years. So they're me or
Hmm.
longer. So I
Yeah.
didn't know most of what is going on in the independent space until the pandemic happened. I can assure you,
Yeah.
they have no idea what's going on in the independent space. So when you talk about writing Medicare, if you simply write 100 Medicare plans a year, your renewal rate on that Medicare plan is going to be somewhere around 30 grand.
Yeah. It's
So that's, and Dave, let me just finish. That's more than most of these captive agents are making in a year, and they've been there a decade and they're not making that.
yeah.
What floored me was, and we have 5 agents right now that have been here less than 4 years. And when January 1 rolls around, they'll be making over $100,000 a year in renewals.
Yeah.
That's legit. That's something we could show on paper. That's not an issue. The comp, the products, the leads, the fact that you can set up your own S corp, you can build a business, you can have tax advantages, you can have business credit, you have a saleable asset. You and I can go on forever, but we don't have the time today to do that.
Yeah.
So, but having the experience of going through it individually kind of blew your mind a little bit, didn't it? When you started to kind of
Absolutely.
see.
Yeah. I think right before I left, I got to the point where I was kind of burnt out, but getting to see the opportunity, it was like restarting, and it was the same kind of level of excitement I had when I was brand new, when I was first learning, when I first got to go out and write apps. Like that feeling you get of excitement, like you get to kind of relive it because you don't realize it's it's just a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, and you know what it is? It definitely re-energized me and recharged me as well. And you used the right word. I think I got my freedom back because
Hmm.
I not only was I a captive leader with a very high producing team. I think I told you when we left, our office was the number one producing office in the company. And what kind of guy would leave the number one producing office in the company? Well, I left because the opportunity was far greater. But the freedom part of it was also the part of the morals and ethics of what we did. Having to bring in 30 people into a briefing and then sit in front of them and talk to them about an opportunity and know that there's a 92% fail rate and they're getting lower commissions, less leads, uh, a lot of out-of-pocket expenses, getting started like gas, having to maybe get, laptops and other things of that nature, meals on the road and stuff of that nature. But getting paid a fraction and then going out there almost with one hand tied behind your back, where your products don't compete with annuities,
Yeah.
life insurance, on the long-term care side, on the medical side. It just really became something where um, I couldn't do it anymore. So last question for you, because you said you were poking around, you had talked to a bunch of companies
Hmm.
before you reached out to me. I didn't take offense to that, David, that you didn't call me first, just so you know, but I'm just kidding. Why did you choose Fourchord? What made you want to partner with us?
Um, I think a lot of it had to do with the systems you guys already had in place. So I talked to a lot of the other companies, and um, the comp was going to be pretty similar from company to company, but you guys had all the stuff that I was already looking to do, the things I felt like I wasn't allowed to do in the captive space. You guys already had that stuff out. Plus, getting to see where you're at and what you've been able to accomplish. Because I remember when you left, and it's like you were the top manager in the company at the time. It's like what is it that could have made him leave? So it's like even from that point, like from afar, like I'm watching to see what you've got going on or what you're doing. Uh, because it's a shock to see someone leave it in the position that you were in to go do something different. So kind of lost my train of thought, but
No, that's all.
I think the big, yeah,
You really said it, but what was really, I think, what's really relevant of what you said about us is that, we still have the same mentality. We still have the same kind of structure. So someone leaving the
camaraderie.
space that wants to come out and build their own business, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've kind of trained people in the captive space. We know what it's
Yep.
like mentally to go through going from captive to independent, and that is a change. That is definitely a change. But we know how to help people transition to be able to do that. And I think the big part is, and you probably hear me saying it, we work together. It's not and again, you had it in your office. I had it in the office I have, whether it's certain leaders or certain agents, is they're in it for themselves. They're not, we don't work that way. We operate with integrity. We have the people that we have within our organization. Even though it's independent, a lot of our people, like Mike, Jadek, like Vin, like me, Tom, Ralph, you, Danny Smith, Ian Gilmartin, all guys that came from the same captive space, they have their own agency. They're building their own model. They're building their own business. They happen to be in a structure where, it's the power of many, and the contributions are, Mike Jadek, 31 years, Vinny over 20, me 20 plus years, Ian 20 years, you 12, Danny Smith, 20 years in the industry. The contributions of the people, the collective group, and how we work as a team. And it's so much more fun to know that, at the end of the day, we're not competing with each other. I wanted to kick your what back in the day. I liked you, David. I always did. But if there was a contest for recruiting, and you and I had some of those, we were in some together when we were in the same region.
Yep.
You were a competitor to me, and that's the way it was always presented. There's no competition here. I'm the happiest guy in the world when I look at our group me, and I see someone wrote 5 Medicare applications, on those Medicare, they made $3,000, basically with health assessments in a day, which is unheard of in our space in a lot of ways, especially when you talk about selling a Medicare related product. So I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate you, all the input you've given and help with the automation already with the team. I think it's exciting. And, I think if anyone's looking for an opportunity, and, your alignment is close to what David's saying, reach out to David, because I think he can help you. So Absolutely. Thanks, David.
Thank you.